to the Hey UK podcast. So this week on the podcast, I'm chatting to Ida. So Ida works for the Wave Project, which is this incredible charity, and it's basically located kind of everywhere, but specifically in Boston. I started volunteering with this charity a few months ago, and honestly, the work they do with surfing, with helping people, and just the community around it is so incredible. And so, Ida, I just want to say a massive thank you for coming on and chatting to me about this. And I wanted to start us off by asking the question of the podcast, which is, hey, you okay? So how are you? How are you doing? How are you doing today?
Yeah, hey James, thank you so much for having me on here. Yeah, I think I'm doing well. I guess the winter blues are setting in a little bit, especially with what was the temperature yesterday, -2 at some point and a bit of snow. So a bit cabin fevery, but I'm excited about what's
Yeah,
ahead, especially with the Wave Project getting back into the sea. How are you doing?
yeah, doing good, thank you. And I think, I kind of mentioned it in the intro, but I genuinely love what the Wave Project's doing. The way I go into, I think we've had this discussion, but I remember I was skateboarding along the beach one day and I bumped into a friend of mine, and he was kind of like, "Oh, like I'm volunteering for the Wave Project, you should come along." And I did research obviously on everything you guys are doing, and I learned a little bit about myself. Like I know a little bit about how you guys are created, but I wanted to start from the very, very beginning and basically ask you how was the Wave Project conceived? Like who came up with this idea, and what was the original focus? Like why did we decide to create the charity?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so it was so long ago now, really, but back in 2010, basically our CEO, Joe Taylor, was the mastermind of surfing as a form of mental health intervention, which was really, really new in the UK, and we were very much the pioneers for that. So back in 2010, there was a group of 20 young people that got together at Watergate Bay in Cornwall, and every single one of those young people were there because they had an existing mental health condition or were going through a really, really tough time. So the idea behind the Wave Project was it was initially a pilot scheme funded by the NHS, who basically thought, oh, using surfing as a form of mental health intervention or therapy could work. We're not really sure. Let's give it a go. Let's pilot this and see what happens. And, now we're located all over the country, over 20 beaches, just on the south coast. We're in Brighton, we're in Dorset, so out of Boscombe Beach where I work, over on the Isle of Wight, Scotland, Northern Ireland. We're everywhere now, which is really exciting.
Definitely, and it's so cool that it's grown so much and it's become what it is. So I wanted to ask you, I basically build off two questions here, but when you said when it created, it started as a pilot scheme. What
Mhm.
was the original mission for the charity? What were you guys aiming to do with mental health, and what has that kind of grown into? Is it the same mission you guys have now? Are you trying to achieve something different, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the crux and at the heart of everything we do, we want to change the lives of the young people we work with, basically by harnessing the power of surfing, the community, and the sea as a way of early kind of intervention. So, catching these young people that are struggling with, say, anxiety, depression, self harm, anything along those lines, we want them to be really safe and secure, and we want to give them some tools and techniques, sometimes that they find within themselves when they go through surf therapy with us. So when they leave us after the 6-week therapy sessions they have with us, they could have some coping mechanisms to face life's challenges. And I think that's grown and evolved, obviously, in over 10 years that we've been working as a charity. But that's always what we come back to, just supporting these young people, equipping them with some coping tools and techniques, and hopefully feeling a bit better about themselves so they can go away from us and face all the challenges that life may bring.
Definitely, and I basically want to talk about some examples here because I know you have so many stories, and also being a volunteer myself and seeing this for the last few months, there's genuine moments where I've just caught myself smiling because you see as a volunteer, especially working at it, you see the impact that not only volunteering can have and the Wave Projects itself, but surfing and I for myself, I'll tell a little bit of a story and I'll lead it on to you as to tell yours. But there was this little girl who built up her confidence over the weeks and went from being so nervous into the water to loving it and getting back in there, and you had to be oh, the session's over, we've got to go, kind of loved it so much. And it's those skills you can learn from being outside, being in the water, they can build into other areas of life, that mental resilience, that love for it. with myself personally, like surfing has been such a great thing for my mental health, and I think there's so many benefits. So I want to direct this to you. What ways have you seen that the Wave Project has helped, participants, and how do you think they've changed over the 6 week surf therapy courses?
Yeah, so I think, for context, the way that we take on and help these young people is we pair them up with a peer mentor, so a volunteer like yourself. And in Boscombe here, we run 2 hours of a surfing session over a period of 6 weeks. And we call it a surf therapy session. But it's very much not like traditional therapy. There's a group of us that greet the parents and the kids on the beach, and we work with local surf schools and surf shops to deliver these sessions. But I think the way I've seen it more than anything, and a bit like you said there, James, is surfing in itself is so immersive. So I think, when I'm out in the water and I'm paddling, or I'm trying to catch a wave, or I'm sitting out back kind of watching the waves roll in and trying to time it, it's like time and everything else stops. You forget about anything else that is going on in your life, in your day. You're just there in that moment. And I think you see that with the young people we work with. You've mentioned this girl that I know you worked with as a peer mentor, and I compare her also to some of the younger lads that we had on the surf therapy course just gone. She was a little bit shy, she was a bit nervous, you got her out of her shell, whereas I was working quite closely with two particular lads that trying to get them to stand still for 5 seconds and actually listen was a challenge. Trying to get them to take turns and to listen to other people in the group and to respond to kind of your verbal cues and your instructions, especially in the sea where it can be a bit dangerous, was a challenge. But seeing them develop this huge friendship, their families actually came together and became really close friends, and it kind of rippled out this big effect on these two boys getting calmer, a little bit more concentrated, a bit more trusting with these adults they had around them, and their families actually becoming really close friends as well. That was incredible for me, and that really stands out for me, I think.
No, so lovely. And I think what you're talking about there is like the whole community. And I think there's obviously a ginormous community around surfing. And I love the culture of surfing and how supportive it is. I think there's especially with for example, so for anyone listening, we work with different people who are like proper surf coaches who construct the sessions, and the volunteers kind of assist. But especially with even these the surf coaches, it's like if you go out there and you're surfing with them, they'll give you tips. And if you fall off the board, they'll be like, "That's all right, get back on." And I think that's the really supportive, ingrained culture in surfing of that's okay if you don't catch that wave. That's fine. There's going to be another wave. We're going to get back on, and it's that kind of really nurturing, supportive kind of culture to it. And I wanted to build off this kind of specifically talking with the community with volunteers. What is that like? Because I know for myself, and I want to talk about it a bit in a minute. But what way would you view the community around the Wave Project, and particularly with the volunteers?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, the surf community is really, really inclusive, I would say, anyway. We're always stoked to support anybody that is bailing really hard, falling really hard, getting back on, and especially with the Wave Project community, we want to uplift and build on that sense of kind of achievement, building confidence, building resilience. And I think our community of volunteers kind of hold that. They're the ones that bring it to life. They're the ones that show up every single week and really bring the session together. And I think from my perspective, I've only been in the role of project coordinator since September, so I'm still very much finding my feet. But the community is so open, so kind-hearted. We're such a eclectic group of people. Some of us are keen surfers and university students like yourself. Some of us, like myself, come from a background of mental health and other kind of lifestyle sports. We've got volunteers that are professionals, doctors, nurses, university lecturers, people that are retired. But we also have young volunteers that have actually been participants on the 6 week surf therapy courses. And they come through, they join our surf club, which is like a continuation of the therapy, but in a bit more of a casual setting. And then they come on as volunteers as well. So it's such a lovely group of people. And I think you might have seen it yourself, we'll do the 2 hours of surfing and surf therapy, and then we'll stay back and we'll have a coffee, we'll have some food together. If there's a little bit of swell and surf, you'll see all of us running back to the surf shop, grabbing the boards and going for a group surf. It's really, really lovely, I think.
So if you're happy to like take it, I guess a bit more personal to you, like how did you get into surfing? And I know like we have the shared love of like skateboarding as well. Like I'm really interested, like how did you kind of get into that, and how have you kind of found that's impacted your mental health or your mood, or like how does that bring you kind of happiness in your life?
Yeah, definitely. So, like you said, James, skateboarding and surfing come hand to hand. I think, they're both kind of board lifestyle sports. And for me, I think my confidence definitely lies more with skating. That's kind of my life, really. But living so close to the beach and, having the sea on my doorstep, I wanted to get back out in the water. I've been a wakeboarder in the past, I've done other water sports in the past, but there's just something, that connection you develop with the environment around you. So the sea, as frustrating as it can be when you're paddling out, especially here in Boscombe, and it's flat and there's no waves to catch, the swell is really bad, the wind direction's awful, but just connecting on your board and just sitting out there and just feeling like nothing else matters in that moment. You're there, you're with your board, you're connecting to everything around you. There's just something really special about that. And I think in terms of how it affects my mental health, especially with having previously kind of suffered with anxiety, it just provides a sense of calm and a safe space for me just to leave everything else on the beach and just immerse in whatever I'm doing. And I think that's really special.
Definitely, I really relate to that. I think like so from my side a bit, like I really struggled with my mental health when I was younger, and similar kind of things to what you said, like struggling with anxiety, and I got into cold water probably around a couple of years ago. I've done cold water showers, and I really found that helped me a lot to kind of like de-stress. And I remember going surfing for the first time I ever went, and just literally like I couldn't stop smiling the whole time. I just felt like genuinely like pure euphoria. I felt so good, and it was like I realized kind of after that how much like surfing really positively impacted my mental health and how much I felt better, and all the things we were talking about earlier with like the participants that we've seen. I felt myself like I really felt the like I felt myself like being happier in other areas of my life. I felt more resilient. Like it's just like the smallest thing of surfing, like the impact and like how much that brought to my life, and like so many incredible people and all this kind of things. And I kind of want to move this on to like the volunteering and like why someone else should like get involved and volunteer. And I want to start a little bit by saying why I like really just genuinely believe like in the Wave Project and why I think like volunteering is so important. And just like from my side, like when I was younger, like I went through mental health, and I really struggled at certain points, and it was a different time where it was harder to open up about those things. But I think what I needed at that time, being really honest with you, is someone who like wasn't a massive part of my life. You could turn around to me and say like, hey, it's okay what you're feeling, like let's come out, let's have fun, and really build those skills in me. Have people who are like warm and supportive and could kind of show me like some light in a time where it was really dark, or I just didn't really see the light kind of coming into my life. And like truly like being able to be in a position, I don't mean to make this about me or anything like that, but being able to be in a position where like you've been through stuff and you may have struggled, but like you're able to be what you would have needed when you were younger to children who need that right now. Like be able to be there and to like give more support, to show something which has really helped you and show that to people who may need that. I think it's such an incredible experience and opportunity, and I just genuinely recommend that to anybody. It's such like from a very selfish standpoint, you feel so good from it when you walk away. The feeling of being like, this is the impact and this is what I did today. The community around is like the best people I've ever met. It's so lovely. There's such a huge social side around of it as well. Like, and it's I'm not sure if we mentioned it, but like you don't even have to be able to surf. Like you just got to have a love for like what you want to do and to try and create an impact. And I think that's it. Like I want to ask you, and I want to lead it to you, but like, why should someone get involved with the Wave Project, and why should someone start volunteering? Also, in what ways can they? Because I know there's so many more ways than just going over and helping out with surfing.
For sure. No, James, I think the most important thing, you've really hit the nail on the head there, and I don't think it's selfish at all. The thing that brings all of us together is so many of us have got lived experiences of our own, mental health battles, maybe feeling that we don't quite fit in, maybe feeling like, gosh, we've tried, I don't know, being involved in other sports like football or rugby, and it just doesn't quite do it for us. It's not that supportive kind of just authentically be yourself, show up, have fun with these kids, and you see a little bit of maybe you and that, you know, like you're saying, you maybe needed that support when you were younger. So being in a position where you really know what that young person has maybe been going through, or at least being able to empathize and support them, that's the kind of community that we have. And every single one of our volunteers has got something new and fresh that they can bring to the table. So, you know, like you say, we're not only looking for people that are competent surfers, surf instructors, lifeguards, you know, we're looking for people that could just have that connection with that young person, whether that's maybe a peer mentor that could sit on the beach with them for an hour and build a sand castle, or just be that person from the outside, like you said, that isn't a social worker or a mum or a dad or a carer or, I don't know, mental health professional. It's just somebody else, somebody a bit more casual and I guess maybe a little bit laid back that could just sit there with them and listen. But I guess what I also wanted to add is, you know, as much as we're always on the lookout for peer mentors and surf mentors, we're always looking out for other people that can get involved. So photographers, fundraisers, you know, we're 100% charity led. So if anybody that's listening has got a transferable skill they can bring, whether that's maybe making reels on our Instagram, helping me research how we can reach the community, anything like that, when we put all of those skills together, I think something quite magical happens. And that's really what we want. And that's really why I would encourage anyone to get involved, really.
And I definitely add, like, it's like, I say two things, like, one, never undervalue the impact you could have. Like, you thinking like, oh, I do some like video editing for my job, but that wouldn't be a skill they're looking for. Like, that would be an incredible skill and that you could really help the charity in that way. And like the other thing I think is like, and we've had a similar discussion, but like, if, for example, all you have a week is like 2 hours to volunteer, that would still make an incredible impact. So I don't just think because, like, for example, you don't have the time to fully commit to something all the time. Like, being able to give what you have and being able to, especially with the charity, like, I know it's obviously we want people to sign up and to volunteer and to give as much as they can and be a regular, you know, be a big part of it. But there's also people I know who come along and they come for the time they can, they give everything they have to it, and the time they're able to volunteer, and that still makes an incredible impact, and especially on these young people's lives. So I think, like, it's from that standpoint as well, like, I think there's such an incentive for everybody to get involved if, you know, if you're inclined to and you really want to make a difference in these young people's lives, and I guess in your own as well. So
yeah, definitely, that's it. You know, we just appreciate anyone that could give us a helping hand, and the best thing you can do is, if you do want to help out, is reach out to myself. So you can do that by pinging me an email on idak@waveproject.co.uk, or going on our website and registering your interest. There's a big pink button there that says register as a volunteer or volunteer for the Wave Project. If you go through that and you're local to Boscombe or Bournemouth or Dorset, that will get pinged back to me. You'll hear from me, and hopefully, like we did, really meet up for a coffee or maybe have a Teams call, chat about how we can work together and really go from there. But also, if you're a student or anybody that maybe moves around and you go to Devon or Newquay or anywhere else and you wanted to get involved in other areas, you know, because we're nationwide, we can put you in touch with the local coordinators there as well, and they could also do what I do here, arrange a chat and catch up with you, and then go from there, really.
Ida, thank you so much for coming on. Like, truly, like, I could talk about surfing like all day and like mental health.
You and me both.
It's right on my street. So basically every week on the podcast, or every time I do a podcast, I always ask the guests for that tip of the week. This can be to do with the charities, to do with surfing, anything you want. It can just be something which is making you a little bit happy at the moment. But what would be your tip of the week?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be so biased here, but for me, especially in the winter when the weather's cold and we're all a little bit more cooped up, I'll just encourage everybody to get outside. You know, for me, it might be a cold water dip at Boscombe or Bournemouth Beach, maybe getting out if there's some surf, but even if it is just going for a walk around your local community, grabbing yourself a coffee or a tea or anything and just wandering outside, a forest walk, you know, anything along those lines. I don't think we could ever underestimate the power that the outdoors has on our mental well-being. So yeah, just get out there for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, and hopefully that makes you feel a little bit better this winter.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Rod. I really, really appreciate it. For anyone listening, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm sending so much love, so much light.